Meanwhile, Spotify says that it's cutting 6% of its workforce. The music streaming service is the latest tech company forced to slash jobs as the economic outlook weakens. Apple, meanwhile, is one of the few tech companies that still hasn't announced any layoffs. So for more on this, I want to bring in Richard Lawler. He is a senior news editor at The Verge. Thanks for joining us this morning. So Spotify announced that it's cutting about 6% of its staff. Give us a sense of what this is going to look like. Are there certain departments going to be more impacted than others?
Yes, at Spotify, one of the main executives over podcasts we've heard is leaving. So I think that's something that we're looking at is how it's affecting kind of those creative departments. I don't think Spotify Wrapped is in any danger, but some of those content businesses and other things that aren't necessarily as core to what Spotify is doing are the kind of things where you can see some of that trim.
Right. So let's talk about Apple, though, which seems to be an outlier in the tech sector, which is a broad sector. But Apple's been able to avoid these mass layoffs while other tech companies have been cutting their staff. What did Apple do right?
Something that Apple did differently from some of the other tech giants over the course of the pandemic is the way that they hired. The Wall Street Journal reported recently that between about September 2019 to September 2022, Apple's workforce grew only about 20%. Meanwhile, at Google, 57%, at Meta, 94%. They hired so many new employees, and that's part of the reason why you saw these layoffs, because the economic trends that they maybe were expecting as the returns kind of spiked early in the pandemic and people were at home and spending changed, those things kind of went back to normal or went back closer to where they had been before. Mm-hmm. And so now they're kind of they're kind of correcting for that, and Apple does not have that.
Yeah, and I read that, one of the things that Meta did that we know is sort of throw themselves into emerging technologies like VR, but these are technologies that, we're probably not going to see a profit for 10 years, maybe more. And Apple hasn't done that. But when I read about it, I thought, here's the other thing that's different about Apple, is they have a product or products that they're selling. And during the pandemic, they had to scale back because they had supply chain issues. Factories were shutting down in China. They couldn't bring the products to market, so they didn't have motivation to ramp up their staffing. Which brings me to this question. We often kind of talk about the tech sector as if it's a monolith, but it's not. Different tech companies are being impacted in different ways because some offer a product and some offer a platform.
Yeah, and that's something that we think of all these companies as big tech giants, but they're not all the same at all. Mm-hmm. Amazon is a very, very, very different business from Google, which is a very, very different business from Apple. Companies like Google and Meta, these are essentially advertising companies. We think of them as tech companies, but advertising is where they make their money. And so they can be very effective when there's an economic downturn, spending budgets that other companies are cut. They will have a more rapid impact. For Apple, as you said, they sell devices, and we can't just all stop buying iPhones and laptops so quickly. If the economic downturn kind of continues, if demand for the iPhone continues to be soft, then perhaps down the road you could see some impact for them. But they have a very different business. Also, they don't actually employ the people who make their products. So if they cut back on production, that wouldn't affect their employee stats in that way.
Mm-hmm. So even though they are sort of different companies, could some of these other tech companies / platforms learn something from the way Apple managed the pandemic?
I think a lot of people could learn some things from the way that Apple managed the pandemic, the way that Tim Cook managed the pandemic. That's something that he's always been lauded for, is his ability to manage supply chains and to kind of manage the size and flow of the company. And because of the decisions that they made early on, they don't necessarily have so much pain now to face as these other companies do. They do have bets. They should have a VR headset of their own that we are expecting to see launched this year, but they aren't shifting the entire company there in that same way. So it's not that massive spending that now needs to be cut.
Right. Hey, Richard, always great talking to you. Thank you.
Thank you.